Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Cover Korea. Wolf and I are recovered from the post-show Huishik, which usually takes a little bit. Huishik, the work party afterwards, and are ready to break down our trip down from Wonju, a fantastic crowd over a 3-day period. They had the fan fest. We had all of it, and it is Hanwha Life Esports, and yet again, indescribably, T1 that find a way to get it done. T1 going to their record-leading ninth MSI appearance. Hanwha Life Esports on the opposite side making their first here, Wolf. And it felt like a very great, exciting celebration of LCK in what is considered a smaller city. It is still considered a city, but a smaller city, and we had a fantastic turnout, Wolf.
Yeah, we did. It was really fun. I enjoyed a lot of the food that we were able to eat there. The fans were very friendly, and we got to experience that as well. City was, like you said, a little bit small, but as a result, during road shows, I don't often get to experience all of a city because you're working. But I think I saw mostly everything over the 3 to 4 day period that we were there. I enjoyed the games. I enjoyed the series from a domestic perspective. I enjoyed the intensity of it all, right? But I got some serious concerns about how it all broke down.
Here goes Wolf. You can't have nice, fun things without being a worrier. And like Hanwha, they played well. They won in a dominant fashion. Didn't take all five. Gen.G T1, the best rivalry in LoL esports. It delivers a 5-game series again. Wolf, why can't we just have nice things? Why do we got to start bringing up the bad stuff?
Because I'm watching these games and I'm not feeling good about them. I'm not feeling good about how they're being played out. I'm feeling like there's okay. So let's start going through all these issues a little bit, like piece by piece here.
Sure.
Hanwha Life Esports having a dominant series, but also a shaky game one where they were ahead and then tossed their lead and T1 punished, and then they were able to come back and win anyways. But this is when I watched that game, it was coming right off of the back of our D plus KT best of 5, where there were again massive leads thrown by D plus, and then I started to wonder, is this not just a D plus problem? Is this an LCK problem that we have right now, where teams just cannot actually close out their games? I also have this feeling, this permeating feeling that LCK teams are playing very desperately right now. And what I mean by that is when you see teams that in the past have dominated, like Gen.G, like T1 has dominated in the past, and Hanwha at certain eras, I would say more like D plus Kia when they were the best team in the LCK. When you're in that dominant era, you get a lead, you play oppressively, you play oppressive vision, you make decisive calls on objectives. It feels impossible for the other team to do anything. It feels impossible. It doesn't feel like Hayes is running it down in the mid lane in the best of 5 where he had massive lead on Unara and is just going into melee range of the enemy champions playing as if he's 5,000 gold behind. He has to make a hero play and he's dying and the game becomes interesting. I'm starting to see a lot of plays like this across all of our top teams where everyone's playing like they've got to clutch this one out instead of just playing the slow, oppressive style that we've always seen our dominant teams do. Not to say that none of our teams do that, and not to say that none of the games at this event were played cleanly and macro-wise. There were a few where the oppression was there, and we saw a clean game go from start to finish. I know that's the kind of game that people get bored of. I know that's the kind of game that makes watching the LCK sometimes uninteresting, and I know a lot of people enjoy the comeback. I know a lot of viewers enjoy the comeback. But the LCK has always been the region that when we dominate and when the best teams are dominating, it is the boring League of Legends where you get an early lead, sometimes through exciting dives and aggressive plays there, but then the team fighting is crisp, the macro is crisp, there is no in, and right now it feels like there's always an in. And I know that's partially because of the meta and the removal of Otacon and some other changes that have come through, but I don't think our top teams are playing as cleanly with leads as they have in the past, and that makes me worried.
Yeah, brother. I mean, I think the viewers of this show like boring, quote unquote, boring League of Legends. It's methodical, it's elite, it is the right way to play. And I think the moniker of T1 that has broken that style of play, has adapted what the LPL was bringing over the last, I would say, half decade of fight for vision, fight to create the space to create vision later on to lead to that, has kind of gone too far the other way. Not gone too far the other way, but has gone the other way where teams are fighting too much and skipping the steps when it's like, oh, we could have just got vision there. We could have just traded an objective here. We got to see some teams this weekend be patient with their compositions and wait, but it's almost like when KT played Gen.G in game number 1 of their series, it didn't feel like, oh, this is a KT problem KT's going to throw. This is a league-wide problem where everyone still has a chance. And it shouldn't be that way when you're that far ahead, when you're that dominant. The Gumayushi Zaya game in game 2 against T1, that to me was another one where it was like, that shouldn't happen either. Like, you guys are so far ahead. How does this keep happening? And even when our top team that we're sending has that issue, and we know that T1 has that issue, we knew that the reason why Gen.G isn't going is because they had that issue. And then KT never got in the series because they didn't get a win in game 1 when they had a massive gold lead, has that issue. Like, I keep wondering, is this a current meta type issue across the world? And when I think about the LCS, no. When Inspired gets a lead, he crushes whoever he's playing against, right? When G2, no, G2's not a good example because they also have that kind of throw thing. So there are leagues where when you get that lead, you just play properly and choke them out. BLG did that against Top Esports in their finals. So it does make me worried that this might be the most vulnerable set of teams we're sending at MSI and could be the most vulnerable year of the LCK in what feels like a half decade, last 5-6 years.
And I'm always what I love to do on this show is to be an early adopter of a theory, right? And I'm not trying to tell you guys that I think we're going to get bodied and this is not going to be a competitive MSI. And there will probably already be doomers in the comments who didn't listen to this part of the video and skipped around chapters and stuff who didn't hear me say this. But I'm not trying to tell you guys LCK is 100% not going to win and we're doomed. But I want to put this idea forward that this could happen. And I think you should, when you watch MSI, especially when you're watching like T1 and play-ins, for example, be looking to see some changes here and some improvements made. Otherwise, we might lose again because we did not have a good first stand, And
yeah.
There's issues with closing games out. There's issues with drafting right now in the LCK and our top teams that we've just seen prevail. I think there's a lot of reasons why we could talk about why games are harder to close out. For example, Otacon got removed, which Otacon threw a lot of games, but usually it was like, okay, you won Otacon, you probably won the game because you either set up for a success on Otacon or the advantages you get from Otacon are too strong. And then Barons were so much easier to take, right? So you got the Otacon advantage, Barons were easier to take. So you get the later Baron, and it's just like, team makes one mistake, and then boom, you got Baron. Now it's like, oh, you killed the enemy support in the jungle, but you used 2 ults? Can you do Baron? And teams sometimes are making mistakes on that judgment call. And I think a lot of the time we see comebacks happen in the LCK because a team thinks they can burn when they should be thinking about turn, or they're thinking, and what I mean by that is I think teams think they should rush Baron like it's last year and smite it and not look for the fight and try to run away instead of trying to use Baron to pull the enemy team to them and start picking the enemy team apart on a turn. And we're seeing a lot of teams just like D plus Kia, for example, become completely paralyzed and go, I don't think we can burn or turn, and I'm just not going to do Baron, and I killed the support, but we're going to kind of like run around the jungle and drop some wards and not actually push the advantage, not actually look for that next step. And especially in games where the Dragon Soul ends up being like Ocean Soul, for example, or Chemtech Soul, where it feels low value, teams don't prioritize dragons. We get to this game state where no one really cares about the dragon that much, and we kind of trade them back and forth, and it's all about the Baron flip and the dance around Baron, or just not going for Baron. And then you'll end up seeing teams go, well, I'm not going to do Baron, but we will push really deep in a side lane to get that inner turret, and then, you know, Shiu gets caught in a side lane trying to get that inner turret because we didn't do Baron, and like, I feel like that's all these problems seem like they stem around Baron for the LCK. Like, the LCK is not used to new Baron yet, even though obviously they should be. It's been out for a really long time. The extra resistances and the extra damage from Baron and like the extra health, all that stuff, like the Baron is just harder to take, is messing with the LCK right now, in my opinion. And that's why we're seeing teams make mistakes, you know, 35 plus minutes in. Elder flips and stuff like that are not the problem. They're like a symptom of all of this stuff that's happening, in my opinion. Like the fact that teams couldn't close the game out, then Elder comes along, and we're at the point where 8,000 gold lead at 40 minutes means way less, and then the Elder is a viable steal option, and it creates all this extra volatility.
Yeah. Well, I think the only team, I mean, we got it right. I predicted it right, but I wasn't sure if my predictions were going to hold up. But it was Hanwha just gets a big enough lead that their throws are throw proof because of the amount of gold that they have. But they still also throw. Like, they still also skip steps, and that comes with, you know, like I remember like the dive that Kanavi did at the mid lane tower on Vi that ended up being an okay play, I believe. I think they dove, he died, but they get the tower. But it was like it was like that kind of messiness that could just very easily backfire, right? And we've seen it happen literally this year during LCK Cup, and that's our best team because they get that 600 gold lead at 10 minutes, that 1.5 gold lead at 15 minutes, and then that 4K gold lead at 20 minutes, right? They just do the ramp. And then the teetering happens, but generally they close it out. But the teetering happens against better teams, and it's concerning. Like, it is just concerning that if a team played a, let's call it a bro and brew style, they played the scaling comp, and they just keep conceding some of these bad fights and just wait for the bad fight to come in, and the team is more skilled, a la top esports, maybe a BLG, we're going to see some throws at Nexus towers, at maybe inhibitors, that will then do some mental damage to Hanwha that then could lead to them being a little gun shy, or maybe we shouldn't play this, you know, really like punch you in the face, early game pressure, fight style, the sword style that Kanavi likes to call it. And then they lose their identity, which made them successful. Like, that is my concern right now, because it's not clean. And I just am trying to decide, is it okay that it's not clean? Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect game, right? That's just generally what it hasn't been in the LCK for these successful teams, for the Gen.G. And I would give T1 a little bit more of a pass lately, but originally that's not what it was like.
Yeah, and I mean, D+ as well in the past, like when D+ was dominant, they played a lot more controlled through the leads that they had. The win con that was, okay, I'm up 6,000 gold. We're gonna look for this Baron turn. We're gonna use our pressure to let's use this upcoming soul fight to end the game because they have to fight for it. We're gonna have a really nice setup. We're gonna set up a trap. We're gonna have all the vision there, and we do sometimes see that still. Like, don't get me wrong, but something is missing. And if I were watching the LCK and watching how they play right now, I would just be thinking, let's think of a lot of good scaling drafts, you know, because eventually, and wave clear and scaling, you know, rise stocks are up, because if you can just sit back and clear waves, the LCK, it seems like, believe it or not, will make a mistake on Baron or Elder later on in the game. Yeah, they will mess that up, which is so crazy to me because we've been always known to be the region that is so controlled on objectives. And like, when you watch T1 and Gen.G, that series was fun because both teams team fought so well. And you're like, wow, like, look at how they clutched out the bad situation in that team fight. It used to be, though, it used to be like there was no chance for the enemy team to win the team fight. And like, both teams are good at team fighting, but the other team had the better setup, so it's really hard for the other team to clutch it out. Now it feels like the team with the better setup is like making errors. And like, a flanking champion keeps getting caught, and then it's like, but it was really impressive when Gen.G won that 4v5 after Keen tried to flank and it didn't work. You know, stuff like that. Or Doran tries to set up the Gnar, and the rest of his team wasn't there, and Pays was on the red buff. And like, what is going on, T1? You know, what is happening? That's just it's so weird, and it makes me wonder what the teams are focusing on in scrims and in practice right now, because clearly they're trying to hone some other part of their skill set than objective setup, in my opinion, because it's just not working. Or maybe they're working so much on objective setup that it's getting a little bit too experimental and they're trying something that just isn't working. But that's really the long and short of it for me is I watched BLG at first stand outdraft our teams and play oppressive good League of Legends. I watched, well, outdraft G2, by the way. G2 was, sorry, the team that outdrafted our teams and ended up outplaying them on the Rift. For B&K at the time, we were like, well, I mean, they weren't that good necessarily anyways. They kind of had this cool fluke run, but it happened to our other team as well. And you know, Gen.G got knocked out early, and we were, at that time, I think everybody, in my opinion, right? You can tell me if you think the vibe was different, but in my opinion, I think at that time, LCK fans were super cope and like, it's just first stand. It's just like G2 had some different draft reads. Like, we didn't know about Shen, and what are you gonna do? It could happen. It's single elimination. We need a double elimination bracket. This is just further, you know. Everyone kind of walked it off like it was a fluke, and because the LPL didn't beat us, everyone's like, it's kind of vague. Like, we don't really know who the best is. It's just kind of unlucky. But maybe we should have been looking at that a little bit harder with watching how it's going on right now. What could happen when we go to MSI? I am not doomer, but I'm a little bit concerned. You know, it's the kind of thing where, you know, when you go to, it's like someone like a doctor who's not a dermatologist, and they're like, I think you should get that checked out. Like, it's probably fine, but I think you should get that checked out. Right now, I'm like saying, I think we need to get this checked out. You know, like I'm kind of like, I'm not sure if LCK is going to bomb out, but I think they need to see a specialist.
Well, so let's dive into a couple of draft trends that just surprised going into the weekend, Wolf. We have done so many pre-shows this year on, and we had multiple graphics of like, here are the bot lane duos. It was about bot lane duos. These come as a pair. Either you get the Caitlyn Bard or Caitlyn Karma, maybe Caitlyn Lux. You know, Caitlyn's one of the more flexible ones, and she was banned for most of the weekend. Lucian Milio, Lucian Nami. Yep, that one goes together. Ashe Seraphine, that's been the punishing one. Brother, I don't even think we had an Ashe Seraphine game. And it was open and available multiple times. Obviously, there have been changes, but like with the deprioritization of bot lane, it then felt like, well, what do we do with everything else going into that Gen.G T1 series? I felt like Chovy and Faker had barely shown anything. They'd barely shown anything in their 2 series. Obviously, it's a 3-game win for Gen.G, but it was a 4-game loss for T1, and it just didn't feel like Faker was playmaker-ing. He was like, all right, here's Galio duty, and then I guess a game for Azir, because we'll just fall on to that. It just felt like it was less strategic until we got to that game 5 where they started opening things up in the Gen.G draft. The Lissandra becoming a priority. The mid Scion, that was pretty cool by Faker, 100% to play the map rather than just play for lane into an Annie, which is generally a little oppressive and did get a solo kill on the Faker. But it showed that, okay, we can cook a little bit, but the priority just completely shifted from what we had earlier in the road to MSI play earlier rounds.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that one of the drafts that stood out to me, and if you were watching Cage stream and you heard me tangentially, you might have heard me say this, but if you were watching the official stream, right, like you probably heard me go in on this, and I even mentioned it when they were losing the game and kind of went on like a I told you so tirade. But when Pays locked Lucian in that 3rd game,
Chimilio, yeah.
I was like they had the Milio, and they had like they held the flexibility to do something else, but they had this incredibly melee heavy comp into scaling damage, and both Shen Lulu, like you have Shen and Lulu on the other side. And so how is Paige going to kill the carries? How are they going to make this draft work? If it falls behind ever, it's just never going to work. And Lucian has to put himself out there in order to like actually do damage. So he's under threat of the Lee Sin kicks, right? And obviously getting caught by Miasma. So it was in the draft, I was like, I think they can't play Lucian here. It's Emilio, and we know he's going to play Lucian. And Ox was like flipping through a few different other picks that like he thought would be good instead. And then I was like, but he's going to play Lucian, and he slam blocked Lucian. We were like, okay, well, like if they play Jinx here, it's tough too because they only have one damage dealer, right? And Jinx is gonna struggle in the early game a little bit, so the scaling comes over freely. But at least you have a better laning phase, arguably into the Kog'Maw Lulu. And the lane did not go as well as FaZe wanted it to, right? Like they didn't get control laning into the Lulu. It's a little bit tough. And I just thought to myself, like, is this what we're doing? Like, is this what T1 is doing? Is T1 like, nah, there's no other thing to do here. We just have to play Lucian. That just doesn't seem like a very T1 thing to do. That doesn't seem like a very top LCK team thing to do. I know we're a little bit rigid in the LCK, but our top teams usually pull out some weird stuff. They usually pull out some flex picks or some trickery, which we did, like you said, see later on in the series with the Olaf and the Sound mid flex and all the stuff that came down that was really cool. But I saw in that first series with T1 a lot of draft problems and a lot of like, guess we'll just play what we like, and Faker goes for the Azir, Pays gets the Aphelios Thresh, and it's like, oh, these are 3 great comfort picks. But the enemy team had a really strong draft. Like Hanwha had we've got the Blitzcrank Maokai combo. We brought that back. Oh, Zeka's on Yone also. Has been tangentially in the meta, but not that great. And we got Senna. We have this great front line for it. Like their draft looked like they were playing 4D underwater chess. And T1 was like, Paisley, I like Felios. Can we play? Can I do that? Like that's what it felt like to me. Like Hanwha Life Esports is just, they have like a whole board, like the pegboard with like lines drawn for like all the different opportunities they could do in this draft. And
The decision tree
here is my favorite. So I would like to do that one.
Yeah, I just it is. I will say about that Kog'Maw, the Kog'Maw pivot, the Kog'Maw Lulu pivot there at the end. They did slam it right away. I'm not sure if you remember that. It was like pick. So T1 didn't have a minute to respond. They had 30 seconds to respond. And I think that hammered home Hanwha's preparation. They were ready for that situation. And they made the call, went for it. And T1, I think they panicked because in the post-game conference afterwards, Coach Tom brought up the fact that it was draft that was a large part of the problem. And when they did get drafts, execution was there, but their read was off. And like that to me was so interesting to share, given the fact that they were going to play later. Like, I think if you share that and you're out, like if KT would have said that, I think that's fine. But to share that knowing that Gen.G could see this and could read this was fascinating. Like I think it was almost like gamesmanship, and it showed because the drafts were somewhat different in that third series with T1 versus Gen.G. But yeah, it was very, very unique to see LCK teams on the I guess playoff teams be on the back foot when it came to draft, both on that early. It just was such a big pivot away, Wolf.
Yeah. Well, I think that the one advantage that that T1 had was they had that extra day to watch Gen.G play. And I don't want, by the way, I did not want to say that I think T1 downloaded Gen.G and were ready for them, but I think they got to watch Gen.G play a little bit and also like look inwardly at themselves and be like, okay, we're not drafting well. Like what kind of changes can we make? What kind of flexibility can we have? And, maybe Doran was like raising his hand in the draft meeting, like, well, I mean, I'm kind of feeling like Olaf's really good right now. If they go for a scaling pick, we can't get access to, like, there's some stuff like that. Like they cooked a little bit, right? Which we haven't really seen, but we definitely didn't see from them in the first series, let's say.
Yeah.
meanwhile, KT, for example, I know KT is probably like the least interesting team to bring up here, but they almost felt like they just straight up copied the homework of Hanwha, and like the teacher was like, you didn't show your work, KT Rolster. Like you just wrote down the answer. You didn't show how you got there. And they got called out, right? It didn't work. The Camille pick fell on its face, and Perfect had a good game. Aiming had a great series, obviously. Aiming actually easily the best player for KT throughout that series. And that's kind of been the thing of KT for the last few series is Aiming is going to get it done, even if the rest of the team can't, even if Cuz and BDD are doing the silliness, like the aggressive play from BDD early on with Cuz in that first game, which gave me pain, where they're just like trying to flash on Duro and Duro walks out.
Yeah.
I think that it's commendable, let's say. It's commendable that KT saw that draft, got inspired, maybe ran a few scrims with it, or at least like just told the players to play a few solo queue games or whatever the case may be. Let's be ready to run that draft, and then they ran it the next day. But I think when you're trying to compete against the best teams in the world in best of fives, like, should you be running someone else's draft with that little turnaround if you don't have the mastery of it? There's a world where maybe they also developed this draft at the same time or scrimmed Hanwha, and Hanwha took this draft from KT, right? But that's not what it looked like. That's not what it looked like.
I will say, I think the frustrating part of this weekend for me was Jayce. I think Jayce, as a champion in all 3 games that got played across all 3 series, was so strong. It was so impactful. Perfect was not why they lost. It was KT. They were in position to use the Jayce to snowball, make the Sion useless. Like, Keen was 0-5. Like, they were getting dunked. And it was just effort over cooking. Like, the effort warning signs started flashing in round 2 as KT started playing worse. And he cooked. The Camille was going. It was exciting. But I just feel bad for Perfect. I can't believe I'm saying this. Because, again, last year, it was this time last year. I fixed all my problems. I'm going to be great. They get bodied by Doran. He gets brushed off. This year, he starts out on fire. We're like, oh, just must be like a draft diffie. He's playing all these like attacked range top laners, getting the lead through top lane. The meta shifts. He's still playing well. And he does so yet again on the Jayce against a Sion where it's like, okay, if you don't get going, the Sion is going to make you useless. And he got going. And it just, I feel bad for Perfect.
It's Keen Sion.
Yeah.
And he still got it done. He still got the lead.
So Perfect, I think, was unfortunately just the passenger in the car crash that was the Jayce picks. Zeus dominated on it, which was great. And then late game Canyon was so fun. That is what made it fun. That whole series. It was moments like that where, again, Gen.G lose, but the mini game within the game was, can Canyon find Pays from distance and chunk his health to about like less than half? 2 of those, you're dead. And it was just that fun mini game at the end of that crazy late game number 3. And so I just feel like Jayce is going to continue to be a pick, because for a while it felt like, all right, if they pick Jayce, we pick Sion, we pick K'Sante, you could pick Yorick and just out split push, but you were forced to pick the Jayce. Here we got the payoff of why teams pick Jayce, and still showed a snowballing Jayce isn't enough to win. You still have to play great around it. And I think that to me was a nice conclusion to this first half Jayce understanding.
That was the best draft of the entire tournament on both sides, by the way, in my opinion. Because that was the one where it's an early pick Jayce.
Yep.
Sion comes out, and they're like, oh yeah? Well, I ain't playing Jayce in the top lane. And then T1's like, oh yeah, I ain't playing Sion in the top lane. and then they had the Olaf pick, right? And that was like, if you want to be really optimistic, which I'm trying to be here about this, that was a moment where I was like, okay, these teams have been playing this type of trickery for a while in scrims, but like they didn't want to show it if they didn't have to, but like eventually they got the kind of this draft was like the moment and the angle, and it was too important, and T1 needed to pull this out, and Gen.G was like, oh, we cannot not go to MSI, or all the stuff we've been hiding doesn't even matter because we don't even go there. And maybe the wallpaper got peeled back a little bit, and we got to see some of the secrets in this one. That's kind of a cope angle, but I do think that this was really well played on both sides. The in-game execution was a little bit rickety, right? Doran ended up, getting Poppy ulted when he used Olaf, right? When he needed to be there on the flank, and got burst down when he went in a little bit too early. He had the ultimate game-winning play at the end, but the execution was off at times, honestly. But that was a really fun game. That was like when we walked out of that game, I was like, all right. Game 2 was pretty good, but game 3 was so good that I was like, this series is great as a series, right? Again, a lot of issues, a little bit worried about what it means for MSI, but very entertaining series. My favorite moment of the entire tournament was in that game, by the way, the Olaf game, when Doran backed and he was TPing back to his teammates like near mid, but when he was gone, they were like the observers zoomed out and showed like 3 wards got dropped. And like it was like control ward and then like blue trinket. They were like trying to find him, and the observers like zoomed out. They were showing that like they didn't know where Doran was, and they were freaking out. Like, where is the Olaf? We don't know where he is. And that was like a cool thing from Doran, because he's like, I can get backline access anyways, and he just joined his team. And yes, it took 2 tries, but he eventually did get there. That observing literally gave me chills though. Because as I'm casting, I'm trying to explain, they don't know where Doran is, and then the observers like zoom out and they're like trying to show. He's showing like they're looking with the wards so desperately. Oh, that was such a good game. Like that was an amazing game because of the tension, because of how the drafts collided with each other, because of the itemization was good from Gen.G, and they knew what they needed to do to kill Doran and Faker as best as they could. But it became to the late game where Paige is so strong, a shock blaster flying. That was. I don't think there could be a more tense game of League of Legends like this year that I could think of. This game had so much tension. And you could feel the players' like anxiety throughout it as well. That was a great game. Great drafting. That's the one that gives me the Hopium angle, right? For what we could look like at MSI.
Right. And I love it when, as a talent, there are moments that are scripted, right? Of like, okay, we're gonna toss to this like call out or this graphic. When you're casting, it's less scripted, but you generally know how things are gonna go. Okay, here's the Baron setup, or here's the Drake dance. We're gonna cover that. But when you made that call of like, you could see the stress that Gen.G are under as they're pumping down wards, and then you got me thinking, I don't know where he is either. And so right when I was like, where is he? The ETP is like right on vision, which was pretty funny. I thought it was like the comedic release after all of that. But it was a reminder of, this is what Gen.G are thinking. And we got to see that without knowing what their comms were, without knowing any of that. And then we got to see what T1 thought of it, which was, we don't care. It's Olaf. He's going to run at you, right? So that I love it when a plan comes together like that. One of the things, now, if we're going to pull back some production stuff, since we have less games to cover, one of the things that happened that was crazy this weekend, Wolf, as you do when you're on the road, you like to bring the show to different venues outside of very comfortable, very established Lowell Park. Things happen. Problems arise. And we get closer to the fans, but also things happen. One thing that happened to both Wolf and I were that our audio, we couldn't hear each other. So like when I was on the desk, there were times where I couldn't hear like the very opening of the top of the show. If you go back and watch, the drone shot comes in, which drone shots, that's awesome. We can't do that at Lowell Park. The drone shot comes in. You could see what did kind of like punching me on the arm. And it's kind of like a long, awkward silence. It was because I couldn't hear Jason in the back being like, please go. Please say something. And Wadid and everyone else, Wadid can hear it, Yankos can hear it, Huni can hear it. I could not. Wadid's punching me. And I was like, well, I guess I got to start talking. So there were audio issues where we could really hear each other. And it really made us have to like lock in and like lip read and kind of guess what each other were hearing. So audio issues were kind of a theme throughout game number one or day number one for us as talent. Wolf, I know that you had some issues as well,
Yeah,
and that's even crazier casting because you're watching the game.
so as far as I was told, a different system was used for the audio for this venue, and obviously,
Mm.
for those who don't know, I mean, I'm sure you guys do know, but this stuff gets set up long in advance, right? And there is different teams that set up these types of equipment and stuff, and sometimes you use a different person, sometimes you use a different contractor, depending on the case, right? Every case is different. And then you have to work out like what the acoustics of the venue are like. Where is the cable? Where are the cables going to go? Like, because this one needs to go up a staircase, or it needs to go through this hole. Or some venues have like are built for this type of broadcast specifically, and have everything set up. And there's like a great way for the cables to go through everything like that. So there's a lot of issues that normally get sorted out, and then someone does audio checks. I think what was missed maybe in the audio check for us on the caster desk, and a little bit with dGon. Sometimes you have one tech check each headset, talk, listen to yourself, go send it back. Maybe it was missed to hear each other. So when we were doing our text rehearsal, I couldn't hear Ox very well because if you guys remember, the first series was me, Valdez, and Ox. I couldn't hear Ox very well. Brendan couldn't hear Ox very well, but we fixed it for the most part. Like he was still a little bit quiet, but we were like, okay, we solved the issue. This is why we do rehearsals. Usually, most of the time, there's no issue in rehearsal, and you just go, all right, well, we did it. All right, cool, fine. But you almost feel annoyed that you have to do it because there was no problem. But there was a problem. It was fixed, and then it came back. So I could barely hear Ox. I think Valdez could hear Ox a little bit more. But if you saw me in the venue, you might have almost seen me like straining to like look at Ox and hear and like look at him at times because I could barely hear what he was saying. And if you look back at the cast, you can tell like we bumped into each other a few times because I couldn't hear that he wasn't done speaking or whatever the case may be because his audio was super low for me. Uh and it was challenging. And then in game 2, it got fixed for Brendan and Ox, and they were able to, because they're sitting next to each other. I'm further away. I wasn't able to see that hand gesture that they were good. So LCK assumed the problem was fixed. So all through game 2, I still couldn't really hear him. And then after we took our headsets off, I think Brendan was like, "Glad that got fixed." I was like, "It's not fixed. What? Like it's not fixed." For me." So anyway, it all got better. It all got fixed, but um, it's fun to peel back the curtain and talk about some of the stuff that can happen at these types of events because this is the first time anything like this anything even remotely like this has happened to me as I've been working at the LCK, that we've had a tech issue like this. And it was like, I know there's been bigger issues, like the power went out in Gangneung that one time and the whole broadcast was delayed for hours. But I'm talking about like these micro issues that affect me specifically. It's almost, I can't think of anything like this has ever happened before off the top of my head. So rare circumstance, weirdness there, but we got through it. I'm curious if you guys in the comments, like, let us know if you could tell something was
Noticed,
wrong
yeah.
or if we like were able to hide it well.
Yeah. I mean, and again, massive shout outs to the production team. I know that the audio guy that we work with was there, and they were there super late after we had finished. They were there early the next day for rehearsal, and we got
And they
there.
did
It's
fix
just,
it. They did fix
yeah,
it. It just it resurged for some reason. Like they did fix it. So weird.
yeah. Like, we do it in rehearsal. Everything's good. We go live. It's like I don't know, man. What's how this is happening? But I appreciate everyone's effort to get it there, and we like to share these stories to remind everyone not only road shows here in LCK, but if you enjoy other regions, even other esports, like it's fun to know these stories, these fires, and how it gets put out. Because ultimately, in the back end, all you see is why is Wolf yelling? Why are we yelling a lot on the desk? Why? It's because we couldn't hear ourselves, we couldn't hear each other, and the whole process on what happened, how do we fix it? All right, did it work? Okay, now there's a new fire. Like that's just part of the beauty of being in a live show. So, just a fun tangent that we wanted to jump onto. You made a point on favorite moment of MSI. I kind of want to, I mean, of Road to EWC. I think for me, I think it goes back to my favorite moment goes back to our main topic of this episode of we got a problem closing games out. which is game 4, T1 Gen.G. We had 700. You made your what's a Fed at 80 carry for 700 or whatever you said, the Jeopardy reference, which was super funny. And then we had James Bond right below him, 007 in Carrier. I'm like, okay, we got Pays in Carrier. And also the way that happened, which was Ruler completely misplaying and getting punished in the lane that they prioritized in the draft. They got Ezreal Karma. They picked it in 1, 2, 3. They banned out more 80 carries in 4, 5. That's what they wanted. And then also, subplot, the inverse was happening on the top side of the map. The top lane that you picked and prioritized, and the 4-5 top laner that continued to get banned out, the Gnar versus Gangplank matchup, he died in I guess it was a 1v1.25 as the Ezreal ult came through. But even then, Ruler was like, that was an accident. I was just trying to hit Pays or whatever. To me, that whole unique storyline was fun. It was fascinating. But that's where the cracks of this weakness in 2026 of LCK come on in. You have a 7-0 Yunara. A 7-0 Yunara. That should be the end of the game. That should be 3-1. Let's punch our ticket. Let's go grab the magnet thing. Let's sign the board. All good to go. And yet, T1 and Pays, but maybe like the team comps, not exactly sure, found a way to lose it. Gen.G found the angle to keep it going and really hammered home the resilience of what a championship level player is like. Like, Ruler very easily could have been like, shit, I lost us this game. The resources were put in me, and I ended it early because I landed an Essence Flux and wanted to shift forward and proc it, and in that process, gave up our whole bot lane lead. But instead, he ends up with the same amount of kills and the same amount of responsibility that Pays had 20 minutes before him. And it was like, wow, it sucks that one of these teams won't be going. It sucks that, I guess now that we've seen it, the back-to-back potential for Gen.G will be going by the wayside. And I will remember this for a long time. Yes, Silver Scrapes was great. I loved it. I'm getting, I had a tweet like, I'm here enjoying Silver Scrapes of the red and gold battle. We're on road. I'm getting married next week. It's been 2 years since I moved to Korea. Life's great. From a gameplay perspective, I'm going to remember that game 4. Game 3, the Olaf flank was pretty awesome. But game 4 of like 7-0-0 Yunara, and you lose.
Look, I just feel like it goes back to how I started this whole episode. It's the playing of desperation, the desperation plays, like the attempted outplays when there isn't any reason to force like that. It's like fighting an invisible enemy, Phase, I'm going in on this. I'm in Xin Zhao engage range for some reason, and having the confidence, right? But like that's the kind of moment where if you do that in a scrim, you can like limit test yourself. If you do that at best of 5, it might cost you your spot at MSI, right? Just stuff like Faker's TP in the top lane on the Lissandra that we never really got full context as to what happened there, but it obviously wasn't a good idea, and he just died. So he wasted his TP and died when he could have possibly escaped without using it, and otherwise would have just, if he couldn't have escaped, would have been better to die without wasting your TP kind of situation. That happened there on the top side where Chovy killed him, if I'm not mistaken. Was a little bit weird. It's just strange. You're talking about the Silver Scrapes moment. It's epic. Viewership is high. I think there are a lot of people who are watching this series outside of like the fans that were looking at this in like a lot of different ways. If you're Riot, you're probably like, hey, I hope that T1 gets the clutch out here because we'd love to have this viewership over in dGon as well. Not that Gen.G doesn't bring a lot, but that's probably something that was going through a lot of people's minds. They were probably thinking to themselves like, questions of what's everyone's mental going to be after this, for whoever wins. Are they going to be exhausted? Are they going to feel confident, right? There's a lot of questions I think a lot of people were asking. People were probably wondering, even event organizers were probably going, man, it's crazy. T1 had to play both series here. Keep this in mind, all right? So keep this in mind. T1 has to play both series here, goes to a 5-gamer, short
Yep.
turnaround going to dGon, going
Yep.
straight to EWC right after that, coming back
Yep.
from EWC, going straight into LCK, and then there's also little Asia games as well for Faker.
Yep.
So like, there's a lot, and Carrier as well. There's a lot like packed into all of this, all the craziness. I think if you were a better, like a predictions market better or something, and you were like LCK wins, MSI. When that Silver Scrapes hit, you were probably like, "Ooh,
Uh,
I think so, maybe, but it's not looking like we are doing the decisive gameplay right now. I'm starting to feel a little bit nervous," and that's kind of like how I felt. There's something about Silver Scrapes that, how do I put this? Like when I joined LCK, I knew the song, but I didn't know what it meant to people. And I remember, I'll pull back the curtain on this, and like it'll finally happen. This is the thing that they told me not to do. I said, um, I said to Max one day, I think either during rehearsals we were getting ready to LCK, or maybe it was like on our first Pog State recording ever or something like that. I said, I just don't get why people love Silver Scrapes so much, or something like that. Not paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly the word I said. And
yeah.
Max looked at me and he was like, "Don't you ever let the fans know that." Like, he was like, "Don't ever say that." Because like basically he was saying like, because I'm new and obviously I'm going to be under a microscope. A lot of people are going to love or hate me right away. Some people might know me from other games when I'm very new to the LCK. Like my league knowledge is so much smaller than other analysts, right? I'm brand new basically. Max was basically saying like, you know, glad you said that right here, not on a talk
Yeah.
show or something. Um, and as I've come into being a League of Legends commentator, it's been 5.5 years now since I started. Silver Scrapes is something that like my wife knows about, like my wife likes. Like when Silver Scrapes plays, when I'm watching at home, for example, a best of five that's happening at Worlds, like when it goes to game five, she'll just be like, because she knows it's coming, she knows it's tradition, and the lights are going, right? And everybody's kind of in this state of, it's so tense, but there's a celebration of both teams as well. Like everyone's kind of like, I want my team to win, but it's really cool that we're here. And everyone in the audience gets to have that moment of, I was there. Whether my team
Yeah.
wins or loses, I was there. I stayed until the end. I believed. Kind of like the KT fans, right? We talked about after 0-2, like a lot of them left, right? I mean, not a lot, but some did for sure. And the ones who stayed were like, I believed until the end. I find that to be what Silver Scrapes means to me now. That like you were there, you stayed until the end, you missed your train, you're gonna take an expensive taxi, you're gonna have to call your mom to go home, whatever the case may be. Like you were there till the end, and the teams were there until the end. And it's a grueling series. It's a long day. But when that Silver Scrapes was playing, and I was walking back to the caster desk, what I was also thinking about was, we got a lot of work to do if we're gonna win these matches. We already lost the first one. Right? And we have in the past like lost MSI to go on to win Worlds, or won MSI to go on to lose Worlds. That has happened, but I want to see a lot of improvements made, and it is hard when you consider that schedule I just mentioned, like all the stuff that T1 has to do upcoming, everything they've already had to do, their
Mhm.
fight through this bracket. It's a tough schedule. They have a lot of sponsorship obligations and interviews and fan meetings. And when do you find the time to keep making drafts like the cool Silent Olaf draft? Like when is that going to happen? When we also know that Tom is, at least from our minds, like not, he's the head coach and he keeps a lot under wraps, but he's to the public kind of often just a mouthpiece, and we don't know how much influence he has. It seems like T1 are very player driven with their drafting. Feels very Faker, but also just generally player driven drafting and strategy. So that means the players got to be together talking about the game all the time and thinking about things, new patches coming out. it's hard to improve when you're dealing with all of this stuff. I think it's harder than it's ever been before with all these extra tournaments we have coming up with a 3-tournament international and EWC. It's harder than ever before to like keep improving, keep iterating. And if you have a head start, like I think BLG has right now, you feel a lot more comfortable before we go into MSI.
Yeah. As we get close to closing this one out here, Wolf, I want for our two teams that we're sending your MVP and who probably has more to prove. Like who's going to step up over at actually no. We'll do MVP. Who needs to prove it going into MSI? I was going to say road to MSI. Yeah, we'll do those two.
Okay, so I think for Hanwha Life Esports, easy call to say Kanavi's MVP for me. I know Zeka has really been quite solid recently, but the reason why, in my mind, HLE destroyed T1, besides the drafting issues we talked about, and one major throw in game one, was that Owner looked invisible comparatively. And then when we saw what Owner looked like against Gen.G, felt a little bit different. Felt like, and I think a lot of people were like, Owner was just bad that day, and then he became better suddenly 2 days later. I
Sure.
think it was that Kanavi is way stronger than Canyon is right now. And Canyon had his moments for sure, but I think Kanavi is really good and quintessential to Hanwha Life Esports and has been all year long. And even though they don't necessarily play towards his aggressive style the same way they did in the first round, he is still the main part. MVP, most important. I think who I think needs to step it up, I guess, to make sure that we're in a winning position. It's hard to say. Like if I talk about just performances at that road to MSI, it's hard to pick out one player. You know, I think Guma had a really good series. Guma would probably be who I'd be saying, a few weeks ago, but he looked really good. In their games, he played the Ziggs, obviously. Zaya is a classic for Guma, but he pulled out Kog'Maw. Like he's playing very differently. He's pulling out the Senna. Like he's really both going back to some classics for him, but also widening the pool a little bit, which has been fans' biggest criticism. And then I want to say Delight, and then I'm like, well, Delight had the great, he had the great Camille game. He had an amazing series. So does that leave us like Zayce or Zeka? I don't think it's here's what I'll say. I don't think it's a particular player that I think needs to step it up on Hanwha Life Esports. I think it's the overall game plan from ahead and the overall teamwork that needs to be improved, and the judging of when to fight in the late game. Because the early game, they used to make mistakes here and there for that, but I think it's really just late game decision making that needs to be a little bit stronger. But they are definitely the stronger of our two teams.
So then I'll give you a third one. Who are you excited to see? So MVP, what is your concern and what are you excited for? How about that? We could do it that way.
Easy answer for Hanwha Life Esports for what I'm excited for at MSI. It's Zeka. I think Zeka has a reputation amongst Western fans in particular for being, because we all said it back when he won in 2022, the patch Zerg, right? He came in on the strong patch for his champion pool. His champion pool's not good, blah, 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 blah. We've done it a million times. Like, we got a lot of props last year at First Stand with his champion pool there, where he showed out. He played like mid Vladimir. Zayce was playing top Vladimir. It was like very fun. A little bit more was happening there, but it looked like HLE could do whatever they want and win that tournament. So a small asterisk. But I feel like my point about that is the West didn't buy into Zek as a changed man. I think the West, being Western viewers who don't watch LCK regularly, maybe only watch the finals or only the playoffs or only LCK teams at Worlds, aren't ready for new Zeka. I think they're not ready. They're about to find out. I think they're about to find out how good this guy is on so many picks right now. And that's, I would say, this is most excited for Hanwha Life Esports, but just most excited for LCK at MSI is Zeka, easily, to me, right now. I think Zeka's really good, changed man, want the rest of the world to see it.
Okay.
What about you?
So I like that you finished with most excited, because for me, I think this is, we're a little flipped. and maybe it's just where we trust it. For me, MVP is Zeka. Like, I think Zeka is the MVP. He's got the most POMs. He's everything you just said about why you're excited to see him do it there and kind of prove it is actually how I feel about Kanavi. For me, it's the team transformed from the Cup to regular season 1 and 2 to Road to MSI through Kanavi and making it work. I'm more interested in, because it feels like that's his responsibility now. That's what I'm excited to see, is if Kanavi can continue to stifle the opponent and, because like you said with Owner, and drive the team forward with those calls, with those leads to make that gold graph that we're used to. Okay, we got a couple kills or whatever. Okay, they got kills in a one team fight, and then boom, like 4,000 gold. Like that is Kanavi's responsibility to do that. To me, the reason why they can do that is because Zeka has done everything he said. The wide champion pool, the not being afraid of getting edges within matchups. And I think partially that is because Kanavi has spent more time in mid than any other lane. He's been there for the 2v2s. He's been there to hover. He's been there to counter gank, which is why Guma has been on the back foot and playing with less resources and having sick outplays, by the way. The Ziggs on the dive bot lane, there was like 3 people plus the TP by Faker, and that just won the game. That one single game or one play closed that game out. I think it was the early fights that definitely helped, but that play closed the game out. And then I think so I guess Kanavi is my biggest concern. That's my biggest concern. It's, will he be able to continue it? There we go. MVP, Zeka. Kanavi's style and responsibility, biggest concern, because we see what it's like when it doesn't work. Most excited for me is Zayce on the top side of the map. I think this weekend was like the first time where they were like, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's play through him for the first time in a long time. You know, Wolf, as I am doing research for MSI for no particular reason until maybe announced at Wednesday at 9 a.m. PST. You know who has played the most champions this year out of any player going to MSI?
LCK is exclusive, or any player like world?
Any player going to MSI.
Okay, this would be very funny. I feel I'm trying to lean into like he's asking for a reason. Is it Guma?
No, it is Zayce. Zayce has played.
I thought you were going to do the thing where everyone says Guma's got a small champion pool, but actually, I mean, Guma has played a lot of champions this year.
Yeah, they've all been pretty flexible. Doran's up there, so I think it's Zayce at 26. Doran's up there at 25, and then surprising, Dokla has played the 3rd most unique champions across all competitions in 2026, with 24 champions played, which is kind of nuts. Carria's up there as well. Carria was cooking. But it is Zayce, and it just felt really awesome going back to the Jayce pick, being like, hey, you be our guy to knock it down. We usually play through Zeka. He's been willing to play anything for us. Now you're the God of Thunder. You can still do that, right? Against pretty good competition in Doran, and he can. To me, I'm excited to see him be given resources and carry again. And as you said, if you're a Western viewer and don't watch LCK as much, and you're like, oh yeah, Zayce, oh yeah, that's right, he's not in red anymore, he's in orange, like he's still great, right? They're not going to know how much he sacrificed for the team to get to this point of making the responsibility for the gameplay Delight and Kanavi's, and the POM being Zeka. It's because Zayce and Guma, to a lesser extent, have been given less, and when given more, Zayce stood up to the challenge. I'm excited to see him do that again against the best in the world. Thank goodness Ben was able to make it. All right, so that was Hanwha. Let's go to T1. A unique T1. They continue their streak of MSI appearances dating back to 2022. They have the most appearances there. This is a very weird setup here for T1, where I guess they've gone as the number 2 seed multiple times now behind Gen.G, but it does feel a little vulnerable. The magic happened in Wonju in game 5, Wolf, but as we highlighted throughout today, it feels different.
It does feel
It feels a
different.
little less prepared.
It feels like when you go into worlds like this with T1, which has happened many, many times, where T1 is like, oh, I don't know, but then of course they'll win worlds because that's what they do. Like we've done that story a lot, but that isn't how MSI goes usually. That's the T1 summer, not the, which I know it is June now and it's summer, but we're talking split 2. Really, 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 really hate how we have like no real name for like rounds 1 and 2 and then rounds 3 and 4 and sometimes 5. Please, maybe we should just start calling them spring and summer, even though they're not officially named
I
that.
did. Did you hear me? I said the spring. I just call it the spring and
Yeah,
the
I think
summer.
we should do that. I think we got to do something like that. I think we're just gonna let's make it a thing. That's a good idea.
Okay.
But this is something that's different, right? I'm gonna go in the same order again, I guess. MVP, even though his performance on the Alistair was not, it was a little iffy. It's Keria, right? Like I think Keria has biggest champion pool, best support player in LCK right now, possibly in the world still. Best player in LCK right now. Game saving engages, super confident, gets pays ahead, right? Lanes with pays really well. They're playing through bottom lane most of the time. So this is the MVP, most important person on T1. And oftentimes we don't get to say that about the support. It's usually the support that facilitates the MVP. Isn't actually
Usually
the MVP
Keria.
himself.
So
But
usually
like
Keria, maybe Duro a little bit over the last year, and then Kyle from like AL. Those are the ones that jump out of my head most recently.
and Keria was like the first support MVP of the LCK. And it was after so many years of LCK, right?
Yeah.
And I think if Keria plays badly, see Alistair game, the team can't pick up the slack. Like they can't. They need him to be rock solid. And so that's both a blessing and a curse. What I'm most interested in or most excited for is international Doran. Like, will he shake off the international Doran is always running it down kind of bag that he's carrying around? You know, like that's almost like it's like a ball shackled to his leg, that he has to carry. It's a burden that's awkward to hold because everybody knows it. Like, and it's when everyone says it about you, you can be like, well, it's not true. The haters are out there, but it just has been true. Like, I think he probably also knows, like, I kind of mess it up when I go to these, but it's domestically here in Korea. You know, it is there's no travel involved, right? You're playing in front of a Korean audience.
Yeah.
It's still an international tournament, but I think Doran has been really quietly changing as a player. Is no longer just like I weak side Zayce and that's my most important moment of the year. I think he's experimenting a lot. I think he's being aggressive a lot. And I know people are gonna be like, yeah, but he always kind of experiments and tries to win that 1v1 and runs it down. But I think I mean it in a different way. Like, he's trying to lean into his champion pool a little bit more, like his Gragas that we saw in that final game, for example, that no one else is really playing. He has been a veteran for a really long time, but I think he's such a veteran now that he's getting up there into like the faker status of like Doran can play anything. Like, he lived through so many metas that he knows, oh, actually I can play this matchup you aren't thinking about. Not to say that Keen can't or that Zayas can't, and they do, but Doran usually didn't do that. But now he's doing it like they are, where he's pulling out these picks that are unusual. Like the Rek'Sai, for example, that we saw from Zayas, right? Like that kind of pick. Doran usually doesn't pull those out, but he's starting to pull those out. And that's exciting to me. I think Doran is super underrated. So, hyped for that. Worried / concerned. I guess I didn't go in the same order, but worried / concerned.
I was like, I was gonna let it slide.
It's okay. Worried / concerned is my GOAT, Faker. A little worried / concerned that the laning phases haven't been punished that much in the LCK. They haven't been punished that much in the LCK. And Faker's laning phases have been like so up and down. Like you'll have one game where he just gets kind of smashed, and then he'll have the Akali game where he's popping off, and it doesn't matter about his laning phase, and he's getting kills, and he's chasing people around. He's got individual form that is doing a lot, right? But then you have the Lissandra game, right? You have those games. You have the Sion game, although in terms of laning, like he's laning into an Annie, he's playing Sion, that's fine. But some of his Anivia play, not great. The Cassiopeia didn't hit. Like it's weird how if we just talk about it from like a cursing perspective or like a superstitious perspective, when in my experience, when I have doubted Faker before an international, they win every time. And right now I'm kind of doubting him a little bit. I think still completely sharp in terms of overall map and macro reads, overall reads in terms of the matadoring we talk about, where he's pulling people around the map and the team's rotating faster. They've made a few mistakes with that recently. They've he's maybe pulled the cape out a little bit too close to the bull, but I think he is going to have to step it up and be consistent if they're going to win, because there are a lot of teams out there, a lot of teams with star players like Knight, for example, that can just be MVP. Zeka, out there, another one of those players that can be MVP of your team and can just he could be played through, get ahead, destroy you in lane, destroy you out of lane, destroy you in the side lane, and just remove you from the game. And while a lot of this season, I think Faker's had amazing games, and his Akali in particular has been such a standout, gonna need to see consistency. Depth we know is there. Knowledge we know is there. It's been one of his strongest points for the last 5 years is his macro, his game sense, shot calling. But we got to see the laning phases stepped up. We got to see some of these weird mistakes go away. And yeah, Faker, he looks like he is super zoned in right now. But maybe sometimes like just let's stop taking risks in the laning phase. Let's not try to make every outplay happen, because I feel like these days Faker is looking for a lot of outplays when he's behind. See that amazing Akali moment against Perfect's Jayce from a few days ago. Like Faker's like, I see the angle, almost like he's a computer, as he has often been called, like a robot, because he's so good.
Yeah.
You take those risks too many times though in the laning phase and it doesn't work out. You're playing a little bit fast and loose with your Anivia egg, the Faker egg.
The Faker egg.
I tighten that up. Let's tighten that up a little bit, my goat, because if we don't, then it could be a problem.
So I have another different read from you, and maybe I think mine is maybe a little bit more short.
Are you worried about owner?
Short term.
Are you worried about owner?
I think no. I'm worried about Keria bad games, because Keria is the MVP, but also had some, like, I don't even know if you're allowed to use this word this way. You can use infallible. What's the inverse? Fallible. He had some fallible combos on the Alistair. I think his Lulu game was insane. He was insanely good on Lulu, which was awesome. And that's why he's the MVP. But then the Shen's was not good,
The level 1 was rough.
Kashen's, that was bad. He was cooking too. We're like, okay, he's cooking. That one didn't quite work out as well. He did his job on the Nico. Like, he didn't take over the game like he has before in his MVP type performances. But I think that to me is the concern. He is the most important player on the team. I am glad you gave the shout outs to Doran. I think that would be like if we had a dark horse thing. If we had a secondary subplot, it would be owner's form. Yeah, that would be it. But for me, the most exciting thing is Faker. I read it that, like, in the clutch moments, like, if you want to think of a clutch moment from game, was it 5? It was the Rise. Who was it? It was Rise and
saving Pays,
right? It was Rise saving Pays, and then the team fight around Drake that I think ultimately they ended up losing, where Chovy TP'd back in. It was a 2v3, and Faker was there to land all of his abilities on the rise, pump out the damage. It is that clutch factor that we got to see that I believed in going into our predictions, and it's still there. It's still there. Huni said it on the cast, and then it got clipped by LOL Esports. They didn't even tag Huni, saying he carried me 9 years ago, and he's still carrying the team again today. Which was true, because I feel like Pay's got a little more gun shy after, he was up 7-0 and then failed. Doran hasn't been carry Doran, right? They put the draft resources into Doran in the Gnar matchup, and he failed that one. Doran had the win on the Olaf, but again, that took them to getting to late game, which Faker was instrumental on making that happen by flexing the Scion into mid lane. They make it so hard to continue to use words to try and describe the longevity, ingenuity, and class that he continues to provide on the year-to-year basis, week-to-week basis, game-to-game basis. The other excitement is he lost both sides of the Cassiopeia Galio matchup, by the way. Like Chovy played Galio against him in that final series. He got, and Faker wasn't able to Cassiopeia pop off against him, and he got bodied by Zeka when he played the other side of it. So there are still concerns, which is
That's
why
what I'm saying.
I'm the most excited to see if this is going to continue to work. Like, he is the ringleader of the circus, of the greatest esports org in the history of esports. It's him. And he continues to do it.
I think I called him my GOAT several times because he is the greatest of all time. But
yeah,
I don't want people to ever feel like when Faker's having a moment when he's struggling, he's had his injury in the past, and we didn't even know about it for a while, and we were being really critical of his play back then, and then we realized why. I want people to know that every time I criticize Faker, it doesn't take anything away from anything he's ever achieved. I think most people do know that, but it hurts me to do it because I have nothing but respect for this player, and I always have, even before I was a League of Legends commentator. We all, in the early years of Faker, I think like Counter-Strike commentators were in awe. You know what I mean? Every person who is in esports is like, this kid is special. But I don't think anybody knew that we'd still be talking about him at international tournaments in 2026, so many years later. And he is someone who has so many times, right after I have a talk show like this one, I go, I don't know, Faker's laning a little bit questionable, popped off and won the thing, So many times when I doubt, I was like, Scout is going to blast him. 2023 MSI or Worlds, quarters. I think LNG is going to get him. I'm predicting LNG. Faker looking okay, but Scout looks like he's the best mid laner in the tournament. Faker's like, oh yeah? Proves me wrong again. He always proves me wrong. That's why I said every time we doubt, that's when Faker lifts another Worlds trophy. So I'm worried, but also excited for what he does here and what he's going to have to show the rest of the world, because he just keeps winning titles. He keeps performing. He signed for several more years. And how many more trophies can he get? Like, how many more? His trophy chest needs to be like a whole warehouse at this point. So I am hoping that we see him find that consistency.
Yeah. Here's a fun game for you. Do you know, as a esportsman, the top 5 players in Counter-Strike in 2016?
No.
I mean, these names. Simple.
Yeah,
right?
I know Simple, of course.
Device. You remember Device? That was Astralis.
Yeah.
Fallen and Coldzera, the Brazilians from SK Gaming. If we look up the world rankings on top players in 2026, nowhere. Not that, they are the greatest of their esport of that time. Right now, it's like the Vitality roster guys. Donk is pretty crazy. Shiro is pretty crazy. I'm looking at the list here, but that was in
I mean,
2016.
I know all those names you mentioned in 2016. I was like, but I couldn't tell you that that was the year that like I would list them in this place or whatever. I don't know. I didn't follow where they've gone since then and what they're up to today. To
Yeah.
further your point, I don't know, what like is Device even playing in 2026? I don't know actually.
Here we go. Here's Dota, Miracle, Faith, Fly. I know No Tail. A couple Chinese players. I don't know. Jerax. Those are guys that I all knew from Dota. This is top 8 according to Red Bull in 2016. In top 10 here. Nope. Don't. Like, I know Sneaking because I played like Heroes of Newerth against him once in college in 2011. He won I think with team like Tundra Esports and then is now with Falcons. Like, that's the only reason why I know this guy. The other list, don't know him. The other guys, not there. It's just insane that it is Faker yet again with the same team in the same role at the same level. It is eliteness.
The only other player who has been anywhere close to this is Flash, right? And I
Yeah.
know Flash actually I haven't kept up with the ASL that much this year. I like to watch ASL when I can later, not live, because it happens often at same time as LCK. Let me look up. I know he returned to the ASL and played in the most recent one, so I'm gonna see if he ended up
I know he
making it
didn't
far.
make finals, which is like, what is
Yeah,
that,
I
you
want to
know?
see how far he went in
Is
this
it
one. Let me see. I think I'm on the wrong ASL.
we're old man
I'm
esports
on
it. It's
ASL
great.
17 right now, which might have been. Oh, did they change the name? Oh no. Oh no, this is 2024. Okay, I'm not in the I was in the wrong season. Yeah, I remember they did change the name to ASL or to SSL again. I was like, no, there's too many StarCraft tournaments called SSL. Okay, the one that just ended on the 24th of May.
Oh, he did.
That is he
Bro, he
went to the
did.
he went to the
He
finals.
made it to the finals.
He
Oh
lost
my
to Soma.
god.
Okay.
That's
So
insane.
Soma is 30 years old as well, and has a long list of his own achievements. But Flash played Brood War in the like mid 2000s was like his peak. Obviously, he went on to be a StarCraft 2 player that found a lot of success on KT Rolster, but wasn't dominating and winning every GSL like he was in the individual leagues of StarCraft Brood War. And in 2026, he's also still like he played before Faker and like took a break, and there was a lot of stuff that went on with him. Like he kind of basically got canceled for a little while and also went to the military. Come back from the military, still at the top. But I still put Faker above him because Faker's playing a team game, has played with so many different rosters, has been on top for longer, winning domestic and international competition. But I feel like Flash is the only player in my mind that even comes close to Faker.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's funny, like when I talk about Faker, I feel always so it feels so weird to put this into words, but like it's almost like religious where I'm like, Faker's struggling a little bit, but I'm like, but he's also my goat, and like, I feel bad for saying this, and I will like go like read or watch like 7 Faker VODs after this to like repent or something. But it's true. Like we went on this whole segment of why he's the GOAT after I was like, I'm a little bit worried about him. Also, let me tell you about his whole legacy real quick, just to prove that I know that like he is the GOAT because he is the GOAT. And I'm not even saying this because I feel like people are gonna flame me because I said this. I just feel this immense this immense respect that makes it hard for me to speak ill. I think the same way like I would really struggle to like talk smack about one of my best friends or like my father or something about in front of somebody, even though like they have this habit that really bothers me or something. I'm like, well, I don't want to speak ill of these people. They're really close to me. I don't know how to put it. Like, and he always does deliver when I doubt. So maybe I just, maybe our doubts here and everything else right now means he's going to win the whole thing. We'll see.
Faker glazing, T1 glazing, hopeful for Hanwha Life Esports and the style that they have moving forward. Quick thoughts on Gen.G and KT as the two teams that did not make it. I think we could start with KT because it's a little bit faster here, Wolf. It is the team that, an organization that you support. You like KT. I know that you are the most team agnostic out of, me and you, bro fan here. But
I definitely, I definitely feel like any feelings I had about KT doing well at this tournament going to MSI were just kind of a meme. And I mean that, and not that like I was trying to like meme it into like they are gonna go because I really want them to go. I just mean that I never expected them to go. I don't think they're on the same level as the other two teams. And obviously they were the top team for a little while earlier this year. They just got to figure out some stuff, and it's really BDD and Cuz need to figure out what's going on with them, and they have a long time because they're not going to EWC either. They're like the opposite of T1 when we're talking about these top teams that have a stressful schedule and stuff. KT got like all the time in the world. They have so much time, and they used it well after LCK Cup. Right before LCK Cup or before LCK, they were the most improved team. So maybe they'll find something there, but. To say that I'm sad that they didn't go feels wrong because they would have embarrassed us, I think, at MSI.
Yeah. For me, the focus has to be on efforts form. I think Aiming is having a dark horse MVP season. I think Perfect is having a fantastic year. I think, as you said, Cousin BDD have been quiet, but I mostly think efforts, shot calling, and ability to hold the team together really needs to be matched by his play. And I don't think his play has been great right now. So yeah, I think that's the quick look and concern there for them. I think, and I hope that Aiming continues to have a great year. For Gen.G, man, I'm wondering if Gen.G is having the Cloud9 problem of like, hey, where's this clutch factor? Now this is two international tournaments in a row. And obviously, this is an insanely high bar to have had carried over the last 4 years for Gen.G, 3 or 4 years. But you've got the super team. You didn't make any moves. There were no moves to make. This is what you got. And like Cloud9, who also didn't make moves. They stuck with the team that they had. They've been a flag bearer for North America for such a long time. You're kind of wondering, like, what's up in the clutch moments? Because we showed the game score. Chovy is currently leading, or is still leading. I think it was 75-71 before the series. In terms of best of 5 score, still goes the way of Faker by 2 series now instead of just 1. But this was a qualifying one. This is one where we needed to prove it, make sure these were the guys to get through it. They still have EWC to go to and an international to play for as the defending champions. But these are the types of series you need to win to get rid of that T1 magic and go back to the, as we described earlier, the suffocating, methodical, punishing LCK. And I think a loss here could spiral them. I don't think it will, but it could.
Yeah, I wonder because we started off this year being like, this is the year Gen.G's going to win Worlds.
Yeah.
And I was like, Chovy held himself differently at first stand in Hong Kong. Or sorry, not at first stand, at the LCK Cup Finals at Hong Kong. And now it feels different. It feels like we're back to the stress Gen.G. They're back to we're not playing as well as we could because there's so much pressure here. Like people have called Gen.G international chokers for years and years and years and years, but it seems like it's almost in their DNA. And it's often in the past been Chovy who underperforms, right? But they didn't even make it there this time. That's the weird thing. That's the thing that makes you wonder, like, what's going on. And I find it much harder. When we were playing the game earlier, we're like, who are we like worried about, or like what needs to improve? It's hard to pick something for Gen.G. Even Canyon, who has often been my biggest worry, is not necessarily the problem. The team just isn't able to either set up properly on objectives the way they used to and win through their snowbally macro. Like, they're not able to do that. And their team fighting is still really good, but it's not good enough to bail them out of unfortunate situations they often find themselves into. And it's like, when you go down the list, you're like, is Keen why they lost? And you're like, no. And you're like, is Chovy why they lost? And you're like, no. And then you're like, is it the bottom lane? And then you look at Ruler, and a lot of people, I think Ruler is the one who got the most criticism from fans after that series. But, I don't feel like it's just Ruler's fault, right? When we look at the big picture, he got caught a few times and wasn't able to max out damage. It's just a team issue, and the issue is that they're not able to. Actually, I think I figured it out, like, throughout thinking about this. I don't think they have a strong identity or style right now. I don't think they have that, which is weird because in the past we did have that. Slow, boring, oppressive. Now they're not that, but they're not Kanavi's aggressive style.
Right.
But they're not T1 circus side lane pressure style. So what are they? I don't know. I think they don't know either.
It gives them a little bit of time to figure it out, I'd say. The world's best teams are coming here to Korea to scrim, to get ideas. We also wondered, was the pressure of winning MSI heavy on them as they move closer to Worlds? Like, is the, pressure expectation a thing there? I know that the players have access to sports psychologists and have those conversations. So maybe it's that, and you take the punch on the chin, you're upset, but time heals these things, and we'll see if it does Gen.G well. All right, Wolf. That was a lot, man, from our road to MSI, a little bit of MSI preview, and then the futures as we move towards round number 3, but we've got those big tournaments in between. Any final things that you want to say before we wrap it on up here?
No, not really. I'm really excited to see how MSI goes, and we've got a lot of international competition of best of fives coming before we go back to LCK in basically several months. So I'll miss you guys for LOL Park. I'm not going to be there, but it's going to be a good summer. It's going to be a good summer. Look forward to the summer.
Definitely. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. We'll check in and make sure to keep it up to date over at Last Free Nation. We'll let you know if we're covering MSI, probably do some post review if there's anything big. On behalf of everyone here, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you. Bye-bye.